Hi, welcome to the workshop, properly. This will be a long project, probably, but I'm looking forward to it. You can guess by the title, this is a droid build of B2EMO from Andor. Season 2 has just come out. I probably haven't watched it yet at the time of this going out, but here we are. Much like with BD1, we're going to be using files off of Mr. Baddeley. His Patreon will be linked below. It is a phenomenal resource, and if you're at all interested in building droids, I highly suggest you check it out. There, the Facebook group, and everything else in between there's so much resource out there when it comes to wanting to build droids. Rhode Island's Comic-Con is in November, and that is when I would like to have this droid ready to make its debut, if you will. That's probably not going to happen, just based on timeline and the cost that's going to be to build this, and the fact that I have no experience in RC whatsoever. But as far as I'm able to get, and as long as I'm continuing to make progress, I'm cool with it. It's an entirely new ballpark for me. There's stuff I've never worked with, aluminum working, I've done metal working, 3D printing with FDM printers, I'm really used to resin printers, all types of electronics I've already had to work on, different types of bearings I didn't really know existed. It's a lot, but it's good. It's going well so far. We're gonna get into constructing the frame. This is the first part. The instructions for building B2 come in 5 sections. This is by no means a tutorial. This is a video log. This is me stretching creativity in video making and droid building, but it's not at all a how to do this. I have no authority or knowledge base on how to do this. This is entirely just how I did this, and maybe it answers some questions for you, and maybe I can ask some questions because I don't really know what I'm doing, especially when it comes to the electronics. So the first step is to put together the frame, and I already make a mistake on this. I catch it, but let's follow along. The first thing that you're going to do is take some aluminum extrusions. I believe these are 300 by 20 by 20 by 300 millimeter extrusions that you're going to attach to these 300 millimeter linear rails. So these are going to be attached with corner brackets that you will take. You'll have to drill in some holes into the linear rails in order for them to fit. I was able to do it with a drill, just like an electronic drill, so you don't need specialized tools, but tools will help make it work a lot easier. You'll want to attach these aluminum extrusions to these linear rails in a very particular way, and I don't do that here initially, and it's actually a mistake I don't catch for a while, but we will come back to it. But in case in what you're trying to do is you're just making this rectangle frame with these linear rails, I suggest you attach one bar, one of the extrusions, and then slide on the linear rails, and then attach the other bar. It makes dealing with the sliders a lot easier, but once these extrusions are attached, you won't be able to attach or slide on the rails anymore. So do those like halfway through. Next thing you're going to do is take some 600 millimeter 20 by 20 extrusion and attach them to the top of the rails. You will 3D print a couple of components that will sit on top and screw in place to hold these there, but these are what's going to become where B2's feet live. So with the 600 millimeter extrusions attached, the next thing you're going to start working on is the stress bars, the rails that the gear will spin and will actually push the linear rails back and forth, which is what allow the feet to open and close. So first thing that you're going to do is take those shorter extrusions and attach a 3D printed part that just kind of clips in place for now, just to make sure you get the lining up correctly. Then you're going to take a bearing and attach that into one of the 3D printed supports that you'll see and we'll use in a minute. And then you're going to take the actual rail itself and you'll screw the rail onto the extrusion. Now the orientation that these parts goes in is important, so it's worth kind of checking back and forth. I printed out the instructions and was using them as a cross-reference the entire time, so have them handy. If not, have them pulled up or printed so you can work through them while you're putting stuff together. Once you've got the rails actually screwed on, you can attach the rail support, and you have this one completed piece that you'll eventually attach onto the frame entirely. You'll end up attaching these rails perpendicular to the 600 millimeter bars. That's to make sure that when the gear spins and the rails get pushed, it's the 600 millimeter bars that get spread out and contracted. So it was while I was attaching these rails that I noticed the actual mistake and realized that I probably couldn't get around it, because when I was lining up the extrusions with the corner brackets, I had aligned the extrusion up with the bracket instead of the rail. And your 300 millimeter extrusion should line up with the rails, not with the corner brackets. The footage explains it a little bit better, but I kind of show that these should line up properly. Once I did that, all of my math started lining up again. All the numbers that I was getting before were lining up with the instructions. Things were making sense. So if numbers look wrong, if stuff looks like it's incorrect, double check your confidence. Don't be like me. Don't just like kind of get screwed over 3/4 of the way through a build. Before you actually add the gear, there are a couple of 3D printed components that you'll add to the frame to kind of secure those rails in place. I went online to like Thingiverse and just found 90-degree extrusion connectors. Those worked fine. Before you attach the gear itself, you want to make sure you have the servo horn in there, because holy crap, this was a pain in the butt to get in there. Fitting in the gear takes a bit of time. It does resist you because of the way the gear teeth work, which is by design. It's supposed to not come out of there, so just kind of wobble it in and move it back and forth. It will slide in. It is possible to push it all the way through accidentally. I did that once or twice. So once you get it in there, just use enough force to pop it in there, make sure that it fits and it'll hold well, but then it's good until you attach to the actual servo. Looking back at attaching the servo, I probably would have used a different screwdriver. I stripped the hell out of these screws. I'm lucky that they are where they are now because they're never moving. Use the rubber grommets with the screws that come with the servo to attach it to the big V-bar, and then you'll attach the V-bar to the big panel, which will get attached to the top of the frame. So dry fit everything, especially here, because you want to make sure everything's going to fit and sit well with itself and with the other components later on. So I wish that I had good advice for attaching the servo to the gear at this point in time, but realistically, I just found where everything should line up and then just wiggled and pressed everything as tight as I could until I felt like a resistance. Before you actually go and lay it in, make sure that your servo is set to the right state. Setting it to 180 before you press it in there ensures that wherever the gear is in orientation, they're in sync with each other. So have the linear rails pressed out as far as they can go and have the servo extended to its fullest extent if it's a 180-degree servo, and then press it into place. Once the plate and the V-bar were in place, everything got screwed down with the bolts. The last thing that you really need to do is flip it over and attach the servo gear in through the horn so that it's able to stay snugly into the horn, which is snugly into the gear, which is snugly into the rails, and then nothing's going anywhere. And that's the idea, is that this is a solid unit and piece. And then that's pretty much the frame. I have the feet in progress. We can see these guys back here. This is one of the foot drives. I have to make 4 of these. It's been a lot of fun, but these are probably the most expensive components that are part of it. So I've been working on that. It's a slow roll because I just got the actual wheels in, which are their own thing. I still have to get motors and I still have to get servos for these. Things are still in motion, so I don't really have a timeline for the next video. Hopefully it's soon and these foot drives can get put out sooner rather than later, but I've seen a lot of people have a lot of luck with Kyber. I'll probably look into that because that seems to be where the most amount of resources is, but personally, because it's going to a con, I wanted to have small, really incognito controllers. I would love to find a way to integrate Nintendo Switch controllers like the Joy-Cons with some kind of interface, like a Raspberry maybe. Not sure. I know Padawan is an option, but if there's any suggestions, I'll take them. It's a bridge we'll cross a little bit later on. For the most part, it's looking like Kyber because it's just, I don't know enough to make stuff up on my own, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. I'll see you when the foot drives are done. Thanks for stopping by.